artists, and welcome to day 71 of the epic journey. Now what you're seeing here in front of you is a whole lot of colored paper, and I'm going to show you in a minute how I did this. It's really simple, but the important question is, why have I done this? To create these pieces of paper, it's just a simple piece of drawing paper. In this case I used quite a heavy stock because it's oil paint that I've used, but you can use whatever paint you like, watercolor paints, acrylics, you name it. I've used oil. I've just thinned it down with a bit of turps and put a little bit of oil into it so that it wasn't totally soaked into the paper. I used a bristle hairbrush and I literally just scrubbed all the color onto the paper. I didn't want it to be all nice and even and well dispersed, so you can see there's dark patches and light patches, and that's fine. I'm more than happy with that. The whole idea is to have a whole lot of pieces of paper handy for when you're mixing paint. Now, as you know, I use a glass palette. Number one, it's really nice and smooth so that I can mix my paints and get quite rough with them. It's a thick pane of glass, so it's nice and sturdy. I have quite a lot of these in my art studio, from big ones to small ones, and I use big ones quite a lot especially when I'm working on big canvases and need lots of paint. A glass palette has a lot of advantages over any other kind of palette, and one of those advantages, besides the fact that it's really nice and smooth, is that you can actually change the color of your palette. And this comes in really handy. Have you noticed when you're mixing color on your palette, if you've got one of those normal artist palette with a thumb hole in it and it's all nice and white, or even a plain wooden color, and you mix your color and then you go to paint and it's not the right color and you kind of can't figure out, wow, what is different about it? It looked so right when it was on the palette, and now when I come to put it on the painting it just doesn't look right. And the answer to that is actually really simple. You're mixing your color on a white palette, and then when you come to do your painting, it's been affected by the color that's underneath it that you've done your underpainting on. Now if we spread this yellow out really thin, like a little bit like what it would be if you were on a painting on a canvas, you'll be able to see a little bit of that viridian through it. Let's move it up a little bit. You'll be able to see a little bit of that viridian green through it that I've got there. Now let's take another color and see what difference it makes. Can you see how on this side where we've got the burnt sienna paper underneath it, how slightly different it looks, much more yellow. Now of course let's put a yellow piece of paper underneath it, and again it looks much more yellow. I tell you what, let me thin that bit out. It looks much more yellow when it's on a yellow background. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, if we put it onto a blue background, it's going to start looking a little bit green because it's affected by the blue underneath it. Remember, yellow and blue make green, so optically we're going to get a slightly more green yellow if we're painting it onto a blue background than we would if we were painting it onto a white background. I've got a flesh-colored one here as well. In the event of me painting a portrait and I'm painting onto a flesh background, then I would use the flesh colored paper underneath it. But basically the reason for all these bits of white paper is so that when you're mixing your color on your palette, you put your paper underneath your palette and you will get a far more accurate depiction of the color that you're looking for, so you will mix it more accurately. So artists, what I've given you there is a simple little tool to help you mix your colors more accurately and not have to wait until you put your color onto the canvas before you realize that it's mixed a little bit incorrectly and the hue or the tone or the value or whatever it is not quite right. So your paper underneath will help you a great deal to be able to achieve the color that you want to achieve. Now I've only ever seen one other artist do this, and he did it by being incredibly accurate. He matched the color of his paper identically to the color of his underpainting, and he did a different piece of paper for every painting that he was doing. Now I'm not quite so pedantic about it. As long as the color that I'm using underneath is as close as possible to the color of my underpainting, I'm happy, because it's going to give me a good idea of the hue that I want to mix, or the hue that I want to use for that particular painting. So quick little video today, a simple little exercise to help you mix your colors more accurately and to understand possibly what might be affecting your colors. Artists, if you've enjoyed this, if you've learned something from this little tip, please will you like and share as usual. Of course, you can go to the YouTube channel and catch up on any of the tutorials that you may have missed. Thank you very much for joining me on day 71, and I look forward to seeing you on day 72. Thank you. Bye. That's what you want to do.